The hallway was peaceful. That's what he said. Later, to the detective. With his hands shaking on a paper cup of coffee he would not drink. Peaceful. He was 19 years old. He had walked past that freezer door 4 times in 45 minutes. He remembered the hum of the ice machine, the clatter of plates from 3 rooms away, the faint smell of bleach from the mop bucket by his feet. He did not remember any sound coming from behind the steel door to his left, because there wasn't one. Not to him. Inside, she was already on her knees. Her hands were raw. The skin on her knuckles had split somewhere around the 40th strike, and she had stopped noticing. She was hitting the door with the flat of her palm now, because the bone had started to hurt in a way that felt wrong, deeper than pain, closer to warning. She thought the sound was deafening. She thought anyone within 30 feet would come running. That is what the mind tells you when you are trapped. That the noise you are making is enough. That someone, somewhere, is listening. They weren't, and they weren't going to. What happened to her that night was not an accident in the way most people understand the word. It was something quieter, something built into the walls around her, years before she was ever hired. By the time she understood what had actually gone wrong, there were 90 minutes left of her being alive. We'll come back to the busboy, because he matters more than he knows. But first, you need to understand what a commercial walk-in freezer actually is, not what you think it is. A scream inside that box, measured from the outside, registers at roughly the volume of someone whispering in the next room. With the kitchen running, with the exhaust fans on, with the dishwasher cycling, she was, for all practical purposes, already buried. She did not know this yet. She had gone in for a case of frozen shrimp. The shift was ending. She propped the door with a plastic crate the way she had done 100 times before. The crate slipped. The door closed behind her with the soft, almost apologetic sound those doors make. A small thump, a click, and then the seal. From the inside, the handle did nothing. That freezer had a safety release on the interior. It had been installed. It had been inspected. It had been signed off on. It had also been broken for somewhere between 8 and 14 months. The plastic lever had sheared off at the base. Someone had wedged a butter knife into the mechanism so the door would still pass inspection from the outside. The knife was still there when they found her. It fell out when the paramedics forced the door. But that is the end. We are not there yet. The temperature inside runs between -10 and 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Her uniform was a short-sleeved polo shirt, black pants, no jacket, no gloves. The body, when exposed to that kind of cold, does something very specific. And it does it in stages. The first stage is panic, which she was already in. The second stage is what kept her alive longer than she should have been, and also what killed her. Her body started burning everything it had. Her heart rate climbed to 140. Her muscles locked into a full-body shiver that generated more heat than a sprint. She was, biologically speaking, running a marathon while standing still. The cold was not slowing her down yet. The cold was feeding her. That is the cruelty of it. The same reflex keeping her alive was burning through her glucose reserves in minutes instead of hours. Her body was writing checks her body could not cash. And then it gets worse. At the 34-minute mark, she stopped hitting the door with her hands. Not because she gave up, because her hands no longer worked. The fingers had curled into a shape she could not open. There were threads of her skin on the door seal. She started using her shoulder, then her hip, then her head. And this is where it gets worse. Because somewhere around minute 40, she stopped shivering. Most people assume shivering stops because you are warming up. It is the opposite. Shivering stops when the body runs out of fuel. It is the moment the engine seizes. The body makes a calculation you do not get to vote on. It pulls blood back from the arms, from the legs, from the face, from the skin. It locks down, it goes quiet. From the outside, a person in this stage looks almost calm. From the inside, she felt warm. At a certain core temperature, hypothermia starts to feel like heat. Victims have been found in snowbanks with their clothes removed, folded neatly beside them, because in the last minutes, their brain told them they were burning up. It is called paradoxical undressing, one of the most documented phenomena in cold weather death, one of the most disturbing things the human brain is capable of doing to itself. She did not undress, but she did something the investigators could not explain for 3 days. They found her sitting against the back wall of the freezer, as far from the door as she could get. Facing it, a line cook's jacket, forgotten on a hook inside the freezer, was folded on her lap. Not worn, folded, like something she was saving for later. On the wall behind her, in the frost, she had written 3 letters with her thumb. No one is certain what the word was going to be. The thumb had stopped working partway through. This is where people think the story ends. It doesn't. The manager walked the line. He checked the lights. He checked the back door. He glanced at the walk-in freezer and confirmed the exterior padlock was hanging open on its hook. The door read, to him, as not in use. He set the alarm. He left. The coroner put her time of death at somewhere between 12:40 and 1:10 in the morning. The busboy had clocked out at 11:45. He drove home. He went to sleep. He found out the next afternoon, when he came in for his shift, and the parking lot was full of police cars, that the hallway he had described as peaceful had contained the last 45 minutes of another human being's life, separated from him by less material than a textbook. His textbook, the one in his backpack. He quit that day. He did not work in a restaurant again. There is one more thing, the part the family was not told for almost a year. The freezer had a panic button, a red plastic button on the interior wall, wired directly to an external alarm that would have sounded in the manager's office and on a light above the back door. Installed as part of a county ordinance passed in 2008 because of 3 deaths in commercial freezers in the previous decade. The button was there. It was mounted at eye level, just to the right of the door. It was painted red. It was labeled. It had been disconnected during a renovation 2 years earlier. The wires behind the wall had been cut and capped. The button still pressed. It still clicked. It just did not do anything. She pressed it. The investigators know she pressed it because her thumbprint was on it, in a small smear of her own blood, at a height consistent with someone standing. She pressed it early, probably in the first 2 minutes, probably before she even started screaming. She spent the next hour and a half waiting for help that had been promised to her by a sticker on a wall. Help that existed in every document, every blueprint, every file cabinet in the building. Help that had been quietly, invisibly, taken away from her, long before she ever walked into that kitchen. Not an accident. A decision. The busboy was right. The hallway was peaceful. That part was true. It was designed to be.